In a luxurious office building, a 7-year-old girl discovers a secret that could save lives. After overhearing men conspiring in Russian, she uncovers a plan to kidnap the businessman who employs her mother. Ignored by the adults, she decides to act alone and, with a recording, ends up exposing the threat, the little guardian. Chapter 1. The Storeroom. It was an October morning in Washington, D.C. The sky was clear as always this time of year, and the heat was already starting to intensify early on. Sophia Rivers, a 7-year-old girl with curious eyes and a sharp mind, watched from the bus window as the imposing buildings of the National Mall rose against the sky of the capital region. Beside her, her mother, Mrs. Louisa Rivers, adjusted her work uniform inside her worn bag. "Mom, why do I have to go to work with you today?" Sophia asked without taking her eyes off the passing landscape. Mrs. Louisa sighed, running a hand through her daughter's curly hair. "Teacher Marissa got sick, my dear. And you know we don't have anyone to stay with you at home. Mrs. Connie is visiting her grandchildren in Atlanta, and I can't miss work." Sophia nodded in silence. Her mother worked as a cleaning assistant at the central building of the National Development Bank, one of the most important buildings in the federal capital. The salary wasn't much, but it supported the two of them since Sophia's father had left to try his luck elsewhere 5 years ago. "You'll stay in the storeroom on the 15th floor, where I work. I brought your drawing notebooks and your colored pencils. If you behave nicely, when I finish my shift, I'll take you for ice cream in Georgetown." Sophia's eyes sparkled at the promise of ice cream, but the idea of spending the entire day cooped up in a storeroom didn't seem at all exciting. The bus stopped at the central station and the two got off. Walking a few blocks to the imposing building, Sophia observed everything with keen eyes, impressed by the height of the building that seemed to touch the clouds. At the reception, Mrs. Louisa greeted the security guard, a middle-aged man named Mr. Gilbert, whom Sophia knew from other visits. "Hi, Sophie Cakes. No school today?" he asked with a friendly smile. "The teacher is sick," the girl replied, adjusting her backpack on her back. "What a shame. But take the opportunity to learn a little about your mom's work. Who knows, maybe one day you'll work in a place like this, but in an important position." Sophia smiled shyly, and the two headed for the elevator. After an ascent that made Sophia's ears pop, they reached the 15th floor. The difference between the lower floors and this one was noticeable. Elegant carpets, impeccably white walls, expensive paintings, and ornamental plants in every corner. "This is the executive floor," Mrs. Louisa explained in a low voice. "Important bank executives work here. The institution's president, Dr. Edward Mendoza, has his office at the end of the hallway." Sophia followed her mother down a long corridor to a discreet door marked Storeroom 3. Inside, there were shelves with cleaning products, brooms, mops, and in the corner, a small table with a chair. "You'll stay here," Mrs. Louisa said, organizing the space. "I put your lunchbox there. It has juice and sandwiches. If you need to go to the bathroom, it's right across the hall. Don't leave here to wander around the floor, understood? Dr. Edward doesn't like children running through the hallways, and I could get into trouble." The girl nodded, already taking her drawing notebook out of her backpack. "I'll be back at lunchtime to see how you are." "Please, Sophia, stay quiet here." With a kiss on her daughter's forehead, Mrs. Louisa left, partially closing the door. Sophia sighed, looking around the small space that would be her prison for the rest of the day. She started drawing to pass the time, depicting the building as she had seen it from outside, with its mirrored windows reflecting the Washington, D.C. sky. After almost an hour of drawing, Sophia began to get bored. She observed every detail of the storeroom, counted the boxes of washing powder, 23, organized her pencils by color, and even tried to read the labels of the cleaning products. Just as she was about to open her snack, she heard voices in the hallway. Normally, she wouldn't pay attention, but something about the voices made her stop. They weren't speaking Portuguese. It was a different language, with guttural sounds that reminded her of something she had heard before. Then she recognized it. It was Russian, like what Mrs. Irene, her elderly neighbor, sometimes spoke when she had visitors. Curious, Sophia approached the half-open door and peeked out. 3 men were talking in low voices. 2 wore dark suits, and the third wore what appeared to be a maintenance uniform. They spoke in an urgent tone, and even without understanding the words, Sophia realized it wasn't a friendly conversation. Among the foreign words, a name clearly emerged: Edward Mendoza. The bank president, the important man her mother had spoken of. The men seemed agitated, and one of them showed something on his cell phone to the others. Sophia felt a shiver down her spine. Something was wrong, she could feel it. The men walked down the hallway, still talking, and Sophia retreated back into the storeroom, her heart pounding. She decided to go back to drawing, but couldn't concentrate. The men's voices and tone bothered her. Why would they talk about Dr. Edward in Russian? And why did they seem so threatening? A few minutes later, she heard the same voices again. This time they were closer, perhaps in the room next to the storeroom. Sophia, driven by a curiosity that overcame her fear, approached the wall and pressed her ear against it. The voices were clearer now. Even without understanding Russian, some words sounded similar to Portuguese. And then, among the conversation, she clearly heard kidnapping and explosion. Her heart raced. She remembered the stories Mrs. Irene told about Russia, about spies and plots during the Cold War. Could it be that... Sophia recoiled, frightened by her own thoughts. Maybe she was imagining things. Maybe it was just the reflection of the spy movies she watched with her mother on Sunday afternoons. But what if it wasn't? What if Dr. Edward was really in danger? The girl bit her lip, undecided. Her mother had told her not to leave the storeroom, not to cause trouble. But if those men were planning something bad, wouldn't it be her duty to warn someone? At that moment, her mother's bag caught her attention. Mrs. Louisa had left it in the corner of the storeroom with her cell phone inside. A plan began to form in Sophia's mind. If she could record those voices, maybe someone would believe her. Carefully, Sophia took her mother's cell phone from the bag. It wasn't a new model, but it had a voice recorder. She had seen her mother use it a few times to record messages for herself. She activated the app, and with her heart pounding, approached the wall again. The voices continued, and Sophia held the cell phone pressed against the wall, hoping the recorder would pick something up. The minutes passed slowly, and the conversation seemed to grow more intense. Suddenly there was silence, and Sophia heard footsteps moving away. She checked the cell phone. The recorder had captured almost 5 minutes of conversation. Sophia had no idea if it was audible or if it would be useful, but she felt she needed to show it to someone. Determined, she put the cell phone in her pocket and opened the storeroom door, peeking into the hallway. It was empty. She took a deep breath and walked out, heading quickly in the direction her mother had indicated as Dr. Edward Mendoza's office. The hallway seemed endless, with identical doors on both sides. Sophia read the signs on the doors: Financial Directorate, Human Resources, Vice Presidency. Finally, at the end of the hallway, a larger door with a golden plaque: Presidency, Dr. Edward Mendoza. Sophia stopped before the door, hesitant. What if they didn't believe her? What if they sent her back to the storeroom and told her mother she had disobeyed? Worse, what if she was wrong and there was no danger at all? But the image of the men and the threatening tone of their voices remained vivid in her mind. If there was a possibility of danger, she needed to try. With all the courage she could muster, Sophia knocked on the door. "Come in," a female voice answered from the other side. Sophia slowly opened the door and found herself in an elegant antechamber. Behind an impeccably organized desk, a middle-aged woman with impeccably styled grey hair watched her with surprise. "Hello? Can I help you?" the woman asked, frowning at seeing a child alone on that floor. The Little Guardian. Chapter 2. The Discovery. I need to speak with Dr. Edward," Sophia said, clutching the cell phone in her pocket. "It's very important." The secretary, Mrs. Fatima Callahan, looked at the girl with a mixture of surprise and suspicion. In her 30 years working as an executive secretary, she had never been approached by a child alone on the executive floor. "How did you get in here, my dear? Children are not allowed on this floor without an escort." "My mother works here," Sophia explained quickly. "She's Louisa Rivers from the cleaning team. I'm with her today because my class was cancelled." Mrs. Fatima's face softened a little, but her expression still showed concern. "I understand. But you should be with your mother. Dr. Edward is very busy today. He has important meetings. But it's about his meetings that I need to talk," Sophia insisted, her voice rising an octave. "I heard men speaking in Russian, and they mentioned Dr. Edward's name and talked about kidnapping and an explosion." Mrs. Fatima's eyes widened, but her expression soon returned to professional. "Sophia, isn't it? Look, I'm sure you have a vivid imagination, and that's great for a girl your age. But Dr. Edward is busy with real and important matters." Sophia felt tears begin to form at the corners of her eyes. No one would believe her. It was exactly as she feared. She was about to turn and leave when she remembered the recording. She pulled the cell phone from her pocket. "I recorded it. I recorded them talking. I know it sounds crazy, but please, just listen." The secretary hesitated, looking at her watch and then at the closed door of the president's office. Finally, she sighed. "All right, show me this recording, but be quick, and then I'll take you back to your mother." Sophia nodded eagerly, unlocking the cell phone and opening the recording application. She pressed play and brought the device closer to Mrs. Fatima. The recording began with indistinct noises, but soon male voices speaking in Russian filled the silence of the antechamber. The quality wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough to hear the urgent and conspiratorial tone. Among the Russian words, some Portuguese phrases emerged, mentioning Edward Mendoza, board meeting, security plan, and more disturbingly, explosive in the room and kidnapping. Mrs. Fatima's face visibly paled. Even without understanding Russian, the Portuguese words were enough to cause alarm. She reached for the phone on her desk but hesitated. "Sophia, are you sure you heard this today?" "Just now." "Yes, a few minutes ago. They were near the storeroom where my mom left me. One of them was dressed like a maintenance worker." Mrs. Fatima seemed to make a decision. She pressed a button on the phone and spoke quickly. "Dr. Edward, I apologize for interrupting, but we have a situation that requires your immediate attention. May I come in with a visitor?" After a brief pause, she nodded into the phone and stood up. "Come, Sophia, Dr. Edward will see us." Sophia followed the secretary through the dark wooden door and entered a spacious office. Large windows offered a panoramic view of Washington, D.C., with the National Mall stretching in the distance. Behind an imposing desk, a middle-aged man with graying temples looked at them with a serious but curious expression. "Fatima, what's wrong?" "And who is this young lady?" "Dr. Edward, this is Sophia Rivers Louisa from the cleaning team's daughter. She has something you need to hear." With a gentle gesture, Mrs. Fatima encouraged Sophia to approach. The girl, initially intimidated by the environment and the businessman's imposing presence, gathered courage and took a few steps forward, clutching the cell phone to her chest. "Hello, Sophia," Dr. Edward said with a friendly smile, softening his expression as he noticed the child's nervousness. "Mrs. Fatima seems to think you have something important to tell me." Sophia took a deep breath. This was the moment. She needed to be clear and convincing. "Dr. Edward, I was in the storeroom down the hall and I heard men speaking in Russian. They were talking about you, about kidnapping and an explosion. One of them was dressed like a maintenance worker, but he didn't seem to be from here. I recorded a bit of the conversation." The businessman looked at Mrs. Fatima, who nodded gravely. He extended his hand. "May I hear the recording, please?" Sophia handed over the cell phone, and Dr. Edward pressed play. The same voices filled the office, and the businessman's face changed as he listened. Unlike Mrs. Fatima, he seemed to understand some words in Russian, as his eyes widened at certain moments. When the recording ended, Dr. Edward was silent for a few moments, thoughtful. Finally, he stood up and walked to one of the windows, looking out. "Sophia, do you have any idea what you've just shown me?" The girl swallowed hard, worried that she might have made a mistake. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding, and she was causing trouble for her mother. "I just thought I should tell someone. My neighbor, Mrs. Irene, is Russian, and she always says that when people talk in secrets, it's usually not a good thing." An unexpected smile appeared on the businessman's face. "Your neighbor is very wise, Sophia, and you were extremely brave to come here." He turned to his secretary. "Fatima, call the head of security immediately. I want him here now, and also call Colonel Perry from the Federal Police. Tell them it's urgent." Mrs. Fatima nodded and quickly left the office. Dr. Edward turned back to Sophia. "Today we have a very important board meeting. We're going to discuss the acquisition of a defense technology company, something many international competitors would like to prevent. Sophia tilted her head, trying to understand what that meant. Do you think those men want to hurt you because of this meeting? Dr. Edward was surprised by the girl's quick perception. Exactly. There are people who would do anything to stop this negotiation from happening. He looked at Sophia seriously. Thanks to you, we will have time to prevent the worst. At that moment, the office door opened and a tall, broad-shouldered man entered, followed by Mrs. Fatima. Dr. Edward, you called urgently. Yes, Lieutenant Oliver. We have a critical security situation. This young lady, he pointed to Sophia, accidentally uncovered what appears to be a conspiracy against our board meeting today. The lieutenant looked at Sophia with suspicion, but Dr. Edward quickly played the recording. As he listened, the head of security's face grew increasingly tense. This is very serious, sir. I need to activate the emergency protocol immediately. Do it. And I want you to check all maintenance personnel who entered the building in the last 48 hours. The lieutenant left hurriedly, and Dr. Edward turned his attention back to Sophia. Sophia, I need you to tell me exactly where you heard this conversation and what these people looked like. Sophia described in detail the location of the storeroom and the hallway where she saw the men. She described their clothes, their appearance, and even how they walked. Her detailed observation impressed the businessman. You have a very keen eye for detail, Sophia. That's a rare talent. The girl felt a blush on her face, unaccustomed to receiving praise from adults outside her family. Minutes later, Lieutenant Oliver returned with a folder. Sir, we checked the security cameras. We found the 3 men the girl described. One of them is wearing a forged maintenance badge. The other 2 entered as visitors from a Russian partner company, but their documents appear to be fake. Dr. Edward nodded gravely. Locate them immediately and put the building on lockdown. Cancel the board meeting and evacuate the floor, but discreetly. I don't want panic. Yes, sir. The federal police are already on their way. As the lieutenant left again, Sophia looked worriedly at the businessman. Dr. Edward, my mother is working on this floor. Will she be okay? The businessman smiled gently and placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. We'll make sure everyone is okay, Sophia. Thanks to you, we have time to act. In the hallway, a discreet movement began to be heard. Employees were being directed to the emergency stairs without alarm. Dr. Edward looked at his watch. The federal police should arrive in minutes. Until then, we need to keep you safe, Sophia. You've already done more than enough. But what about the bad men? What if they realize they've been discovered? The concern was legitimate. If the conspirators realized their plan had been exposed, they might try to act more quickly or escape. I have an idea, said Mrs. Fatima, who until then had been observing everything in silence. Let's find Sophia's mother first. She must be worried, and the 2 of them can wait in a safe place. Dr. Edward agreed. Excellent idea, Fatima. Take Sophia to the security room in the basement. It's the most protected place in the building. I will coordinate the operation with the federal police when they arrive. Sophia followed Mrs. Fatima to the service elevator, while Dr. Edward spoke quickly on the phone. The movement on the floor was more intense now, but still orderly. Employees left calmly, some looking confused, others worried. As the elevator doors closed, Sophia saw 3 men being discreetly approached by security guards at the end of the hallway. She immediately recognized them as the men she had heard. One of them, as he was surrounded, seemed to try to reach for something inside his jacket. The doors closed completely, and the elevator began to descend. Mrs. Fatima, Sophia asked with a trembling voice, what will happen to those men? The secretary smiled reassuringly. Don't worry, dear. Security and the police will take care of them. You did the right thing. The elevator reached the basement, and the 2 exited into a well-lit corridor that led to the security control room. Mrs. Fatima used a magnetic card to open the door, revealing a room with several screens showing different areas of the building. Sitting in a chair, visibly distressed, was Mrs. Louisa. Sophia, she exclaimed upon seeing her daughter, rushing to hug her. Where were you? I was desperate when I went back to the storeroom and couldn't find you. Mom, you won't believe what happened, Sophia began, but was interrupted by Mrs. Fatima. Your daughter is a hero. Mrs. Louisa, she just prevented an attack against Dr. Edward and possibly saved many lives today. Louisa's eyes widened in shock, alternating between her daughter and the elegant executive secretary. What do you mean? What's going on? As Mrs. Fatima explained the situation to Louisa, Sophia watched the monitors showing the 15th floor. On one of the screens, she saw the 3 men being escorted by federal police officers who had just arrived. On another, Dr. Edward was talking seriously with a man in a suit who seemed to be someone important. "I can't believe it," Mrs. Louisa murmured, looking at her daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. "How did you have the courage to do all this alone?" Sophia shrugged, suddenly shy. "I just did what I thought was right. Mum, you always taught me that we should help others when we can." Louisa hugged her daughter tightly, tears in her eyes. "I'm proud of you, my little one, but I'm also terrified just thinking about the danger you faced." At that moment, the security room door opened and Dr. Edward entered, accompanied by Colonel Perry of the Federal Police. "Mrs. Louisa, your daughter demonstrated extraordinary courage and intelligence today," the businessman said with a genuine smile. "Thanks to her, we avoided a tragedy." The Little Guardian. Chapter 3. The Promised Colonel Perry, a middle-aged man with a military bearing, looked at Sophia with an expression of admiration. "So this is the young lady who uncovered the operation? Impressive." Sophia felt embarrassed by all the attention, but Dr. Edward placed a hand on her shoulder reassuringly. "Exactly, Colonel. Sophia Rivers demonstrated a perceptiveness that many of our security agents could envy." Mrs. Louisa hugged her daughter protectively, still processing everything that had happened. "The men, were they arrested?" Sophia asked timidly, looking at the colonel. "Yes, little one," he replied, softening his tone of voice. "They are in federal police custody. And thanks to your recording and your testimony, we were able to act quickly." Dr. Edward checked his watch and exchanged a few words in a low voice with Mrs. Fatima, who nodded and left the room. "Sophia, Mrs. Louisa," he began, sitting down to be at the girl's eye level, "I cannot adequately express how grateful I am for what happened today. It's no exaggeration to say that you saved not only my life, but potentially the lives of many other people in this building." Mrs. Louisa squeezed her daughter's hand, visibly moved. "She's always been very observant," she said with pride despite the tremor in her voice. "Since she was little, she notices things that others don't." Colonel Perry made a few notes in a small notebook. "We'll need a formal statement, but that can wait until tomorrow. For today, I think you two deserve to rest." Dr. Edward stood up and walked to the security room window, which overlooked the basement parking lot. For a few moments, he remained silent, as if contemplating something important. When he turned back to mother and daughter, his expression was determined. "Mrs. Louisa, Sophia, I would like to do something to repay what happened today. It's not necessary." "Dr. Edward," Mrs. Louisa replied quickly, "anyone would have done the same." "No," he countered, shaking his head, "not just anyone. Many would have ignored it. Others would have been afraid. Your daughter showed extraordinary courage and determination." He knelt again before Sophia. "Do you like to study, Sophia?" The girl nodded enthusiastically. "I like it very much, especially math and science. My teacher, Teacher Marissa, says I'm the best student in the class." "And where do you study currently?" "At Lincoln Elementary School in Southside," Mrs. Louisa replied. "It's a good school, but—" she hesitated. "We don't always have the resources for all the extra activities." Dr. Edward smiled. "I would like to offer Sophia a full scholarship, from now until the completion of her university education, if that is the path she chooses." Mrs. Louisa's eyes widened in shock. "What do you mean?" "You can't be serious." "I am completely serious," he affirmed. "The National Development Bank has a scholarship program for exceptionally talented children of employees. Normally there's a rigorous selection process, but in this case, I think Sophia has already demonstrated more than enough to qualify." Sophia looked at her mother with bright eyes, barely able to believe what she was hearing. "Does that mean I could study at any school?" "Any private school in Washington, D.C., Dr. Edward confirmed, and later, any university in the country. All costs covered: tuition, school supplies, uniforms, extracurricular activities." Mrs. Louisa covered her mouth with her hand, tears streaming down her face. "Dr. Edward, this would completely change our lives. I've always dreamed of giving Sophia a quality education, but with my salary—" "Consider it an investment in the future," he said firmly. "America needs young talents like your daughter, brilliant minds that can observe, analyze, and act when necessary. Colonel Perry, who had been observing the scene in silence, gave a slight smile. If I may suggest, Dr. Edward, perhaps the Washington, D.C. Academy would be a good choice. My niece studies there, and they have an excellent program for gifted students. An excellent suggestion, the businessman agreed. We can initiate the transfer procedures next week if you agree, Mrs. Louisa. Sophia's mother, still stunned by the proposal, could only nod. I don't know how to thank you. No need to thank me, Dr. Edward replied. As I said, it's an investment. And I'm sure Sophia will surprise us even more in the future. Sophia, who until then had been quiet, trying to absorb everything, finally spoke. I will study hard, I promise. I'll be the best student you've ever seen. Dr. Edward laughed, delighted with the girl's enthusiasm. I'm sure you will, Sophia. But remember, the most important thing is not just to be the best student, but to use the knowledge you gain to make a difference in the world, just as you did today. A week later, Sophia walked through the corridors of the Washington, D.C. Academy, holding her mother's hand tightly. The modern building, with its ample green areas and well-equipped laboratories, was very different from her old public school. She wore a new uniform, and her backpack was filled with top-notch school supplies, all provided by the scholarship program. The principal, Dr. Cecilia Vance, an elegant woman with gray hair and a keen gaze, received them in her office. Sophia Rivers, she said, consulting a folder of documents, your grades at your previous school are excellent. And Dr. Edward Mendoza spoke personally about you, which is quite unusual. Sophia felt intimidated but stood firm, as she had promised herself she would. I hope to meet expectations. Dr. Vance. The principal smiled, surprised by the maturity of the response. I'm sure you will. Our school has a special program for students with above-average abilities. After a few evaluations, we will decide which class will be most suitable for you. Mrs. Louisa squeezed her daughter's hand encouragingly. Dr. Vance, Sophia has always been very observant and analytical. I believe she would benefit greatly from additional challenges. Without a doubt, the principal agreed. Our talent program offers just that. In addition to the regular curriculum, students participate in special projects in the areas of science, technology, arts, and humanities. The following weeks were of intense adaptation for Sophia. Although she missed her old classmates, she soon made new friends. Her performance in the initial evaluations was so exceptional that she was placed in an acceleration class, with children 1 or 2 years older than her. During the first month, Sophia discovered a particular passion for foreign languages, especially Russian. Inspired by the experience that had changed her life, she enrolled in optional Russian classes offered after school, fascinated by the possibility of one day fully understanding what those men had said. The Russian teacher, Mrs. Natalia Kuznetsova, an immigrant who had lived in the country for 2 decades, was impressed by the girl's dedication. Sophia, you have a natural talent for languages, she commented, after a particularly productive class. Your ear for pronunciation is exceptional. Thank you, teacher. It's just that I really want to learn. Mrs. Kuznetsova tilted her head, curious. May I ask the reason for such an interest in Russian? It's an unusual choice for someone so young. Sophia hesitated, not wanting to relive the events of that day, but feeling she owed an explanation. Something happened, something important, and I realized that knowing other languages can make a difference in critical situations. The teacher nodded, respecting the student's desire for discretion. Well, whatever your motivation, it's working. Keep it up. As the months passed, Sophia not only excelled academically, but also developed an increasing curiosity about security, investigation, and analysis. She frequently visited the school library to read books about the history of espionage, codes and cryptography, and human behavior. The librarian, Mrs. Martha, an elderly lady with thick glasses and a gentle smile, noticed the girl's reading pattern. I see we have a detective in training, she commented one day, as Sophia returned the book of secret codes and picked up Introduction to Forensic Psychology, Youth Edition. Sophia blushed slightly. I just find it interesting how people think and act, especially when they're hiding something. A valuable skill, Mrs. Martha observed. Did you know we have a forensic debate club here at school? Many of our former students pursued careers in law and government agencies. Sophia's eyes sparkled with interest. Really? Can I join? It's generally for high school students, but given your special situation, Mrs. Martha smiled conspiratorially. I can talk to the coordinator. You never know when we'll need an observant mind like yours. That night at dinner, Sophia excitedly told her mother about the possibility of joining the forensic debate club. Mom, Mrs. Martha said I can attend the club meetings. They discuss real cases and do mock trials. Mrs. Louisa smiled, serving a little more rice onto her daughter's plate. That's wonderful, honey. But don't overdo it with too many activities, okay? You already have regular classes, Russian, and now this. It's not overdoing it when you love what you do, Sophia replied with wisdom beyond her years. Besides, I want to show Dr. Edward that his investment is worthwhile. Louisa watched her daughter with a mixture of pride and a touch of concern. Sophia, I'm sure he already knows that. Your grades are exceptional, and your teachers have nothing but praise. But remember that you're also a child and deserve time to play and have fun. I do have fun, Mom, Sophia assured her. I have friends, I play soccer during breaks, and I even joined the chess club. Mrs. Louisa laughed, shaking her head. Chess, of course. Why am I not surprised? Sophia shrugged, smiling. My math teacher said it's good for developing strategic thinking. A year passed since the incident at the National Development Bank. Sophia, now 8 years old, had grown a few inches, and her hair was longer. But her eyes held the same observant and attentive sparkle. One Friday afternoon, while waiting for her mother in the schoolyard after debate club, Sophia was surprised by an unexpected visit. A black official car stopped at the gate, and Dr. Edward Mendoza, now promoted to Secretary of the Treasury, stepped out. Sophia, he called, waving. The girl ran to him, surprised and happy. Dr. Edward, what are you doing here? The businessman, now secretary, smiled. I came to see how our young hero is doing. Dr. Cecilia sends me regular reports on your progress, but I wanted to see for myself. Sophia blushed with pride. I'm doing well. I was promoted to the advanced acceleration class, and I'm already at the intermediate level in Russian. Impressive, he commented. And I heard you've been particularly interested in security and investigation matters. Sophia nodded, intrigued by how much he knew about her school activities. Yes, I find it fascinating how small details can reveal great truths, if we know how to observe them. Dr. Edward looked around and gestured to a nearby bench. Can we talk for a bit? Sophia looked at her watch. Her mother would still take about 20 minutes to arrive, as her shift at the bank ended at 6 p.m. Of course. They sat down, and Dr. Edward seemed to be organizing his thoughts. Sophia, you know that those men you helped capture last year were part of an industrial espionage network, right? The girl nodded. Her mother had explained in simple terms what had happened. They wanted to steal the secrets of the technology company the bank was going to buy. Exactly. And since then, I've thought a lot about how a 7-year-old child managed to perceive what trained security professionals didn't. Sophia reflected for a moment. Maybe because no one expects a child to understand what's happening, so they don't bother to hide things from us. We're like invisible to them. Dr. Edward looked at her with genuine admiration. That's a brilliant observation, Sophia, and that's why I'm here today. I have a proposal for you. The Little Guardian. Chapter 4. New Horizons. Sophia looked at Dr. Edward with curiosity. A proposal? What kind of proposal? The secretary adjusted himself on the bench, carefully choosing his words. We are developing an experimental program at the Department of the Treasury, in partnership with the NIA, the National Intelligence Agency. A program to identify and nurture precocious talents in areas of national interest, such as security, data analysis, and counterintelligence. Sophia's eyes sparkled with interest. Like a training program for children. Dr. Edwards smiled. Something like that. We call it Project Sentinel. It would involve extracurricular activities, compatible with your regular studies, but focused on developing specific skills: observation, critical analysis, languages, human behavior, basic cryptography. And you want me to participate? Sophia asked, barely containing the excitement in her voice. Exactly. It would be after school twice a week. Parents need to authorize it. Of course. And the entire program is supervised by educators and psychologists to ensure it's appropriate for the participants' age. Sophia was about to respond with an enthusiastic "yes" when she saw her mother approaching the school gate. Mrs. Louisa looked tired after a long day at work, but her face lit up with a smile upon seeing her daughter. Then she noticed who was sitting next to her, and her expression changed to surprise. "Dr. Edward, what are you doing here?" The secretary stood up and extended his hand. "Mrs. Louisa, it's good to see you. I came to talk to Sophia about an opportunity that I believe would be perfect for her." He explained Project Sentinel in detail, while Mrs. Louisa listened with an increasingly concerned expression. "I don't know, Dr. Edward," she finally said. "Sophia already has so many activities and she's so young." "Mom, please," Sophia interrupted. "It's exactly what I want to do." "It's like it was made for me." Mrs. Louisa looked at her daughter, recognizing the determination in her eyes. "I understand your enthusiasm, honey, but we need to think carefully. This kind of training, it's not for a normal child." "But I'm not a normal child, Mom," Sophia argued, her voice suddenly serious. "I never have been." "You've always said so yourself." Dr. Edward gently intervened. "Mrs. Louisa, I understand your concern. That's why I'd like to invite you to visit the program, see the facilities, talk to the coordinators. Nothing will be decided without your full approval and supervision." After a moment of reflection, Mrs. Louisa nodded slowly. "All right. We'll go see this project. But I'm not promising anything, you hear, Sophia?" The girl hugged her mother impulsively. "Thank you, Mom. You won't regret it." The following Saturday, mother and daughter were driven by Dr. Edward to a discreet building in the Southside Club District, on the banks of the Potomac River. Externally, it looked like a common recreational center, with sports courts and leisure areas. Inside, however, it revealed a sophisticated structure, with modern classrooms, laboratories, and simulators. The program coordinator, Dr. Helena Foster, a woman in her 40s with a military bearing and a sharp gaze, received them at the entrance. "Welcome to Project Sentinel," she greeted them. "Sophia, we've heard a lot about you." The girl smiled shyly, while Mrs. Louisa observed everything with a critical eye. During the next hour, they were led through various areas of the center. They saw children and teenagers engaged in different activities, some learning advanced observation techniques, others practicing languages in realistic simulations, and some in sessions that looked like games, but were actually exercises in logic and problem-solving. "All our instructors are certified specialists in their areas," Dr. Helena explained, "and we have a team of psychologists who monitor each participant, ensuring healthy and balanced cognitive development." In one of the rooms, Sophia watched fascinated as teenagers analyzed a simulated scenario, looking for clues and discussing theories. "This is our situational analysis lab," Dr. Helena commented. "Participants learn to evaluate environments, identify anomalies, and develop hypotheses based on evidence." "It seems very advanced for children," Mrs. Louisa observed, still unconvinced. "We adapt each activity to the appropriate age group," the coordinator assured her. "For the younger ones, like Sophia would be, everything is presented as fun games and challenges. The playful aspect is fundamental." At the end of the tour, they were taken to a small meeting room where they were served a snack. Dr. Edward, who had accompanied them in silence during the visit, finally spoke. "So, Mrs. Louisa, what do you think?" She hesitated, observing the enthusiasm on her daughter's face. "It's impressive, I won't deny it, but I still have doubts. What kind of future are you preparing for these children?" Dr. Helena responded frankly. "We are developing skills that will be valuable in any career they choose, whether in national security, diplomacy, science, or business. But yes, I recognize that many of our former students end up serving the country in strategic roles. As spies," "You mean," Mrs. Louisa said directly, "as analysts, strategists, security specialists," Dr. Edward corrected gently. "The world is changing, Mrs. Louisa. Today's threats are complex and often invisible. We need minds prepared to identify and neutralize them." Sophia, who was listening attentively, intervened. "Mom, remember when I heard those men at the bank? If I hadn't realized something was wrong, people could have been hurt. said, "I want to help more often. I want to make a difference." Mrs. Louisa looked at her daughter, recognizing the sincerity and determination in her words. "I have one condition," she finally said. "I want regular reports on Sophia's progress and the right to withdraw her from the program at any time if I feel it's negatively affecting her development." "Absolutely," Dr. Helena agreed promptly. "In fact, we insist on active parental involvement." Dr. Edwards smiled, satisfied. "Then it's decided. Sophia will be our newest sentinel." In the months that followed, Sophia balanced her normal school routine with Project Sentinel activities. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, after regular classes, she was taken to the center on the banks of the Potomac River, where she spent 3 hours in specialized training. Initially, the activities really seemed like just fun games, memory exercises, logic puzzles, observation simulations. Gradually, however, Sophia realized the purpose behind each challenge. She was learning to see the world in a different way, more attentive to details and patterns. Her main instructor, Captain Rena Vance, a former military intelligence officer with a special talent for working with children, was impressed by how quickly Sophia absorbed the lessons. "You have a natural talent, Sophia," she commented after a particularly successful session where the girl had identified all the out-of-place elements in a purposefully altered room. "Your ability to notice discrepancies is exceptional." Sophia smiled, proud. "It's because I always pay attention to everything. My mom says I was born with my eyes wide open." Captain Rena laughed. "A valuable trait. Many people go through life with their eyes half closed, missing half of what's happening around them." One day, approximately 6 months after joining the program, Sophia was introduced to a new instructor, Major Richard Towers, a specialist in behavioral analysis. "Sophia, today we're going to work on something a little different," he explained. "We're going to observe people and try to understand what they're thinking or feeling, based only on their expressions and movements." Sophia tilted her head. "Curious. Like knowing if someone is lying?" Major Towers smiled. "Exactly. But it's not as simple as it seems in movies. There isn't a single sign that indicates lying. It's a combination of micro-expressions, inconsistencies in speech, unconscious body movements." During the session, they watched interview videos, and Sophia was challenged to identify moments of discomfort, hesitation or dishonesty in the interviewees. To her surprise, she discovered she had a natural sensitivity for this. "Impressive," Major Towers commented after Sophia correctly identified several subtle instances of deception. "You have what we call calibrated intuition, the ability to process inconsistencies so quickly that it seems instinctive." As the first year in Project Sentinel neared its end, Sophia, now 9 years old, had developed a remarkable set of skills. Her Russian was almost fluent, her memory had been enhanced through specialized techniques, and her situational analysis capability surpassed that of many adults. On a Friday afternoon, while waiting for her mother after a session, Sophia was surprised by a special visit, Colonel Perry, the same federal police officer who had been present on the day of the bank incident. "Hello, Sophia," he greeted her with a warm smile. "Do you remember me?" "Colonel Perry," she replied promptly. "You were there when they caught those Russian men." "Excellent memory," he approved. "I came to see how you're doing in the program. I've heard impressive things from the instructors." Sophia blushed slightly at the compliment. "I'm learning a lot. It's like I'm discovering a superpower I always had, but didn't know how to use properly." The colonel laughed. "It's a good analogy. Careful observation truly is a superpower, especially in a world where most people are distracted by their phones all the time." They walked through the center's garden, while the colonel asked about her favorite activities in the program. "I particularly like the field simulations," Sophia confided. "Last week we had to follow clues in a park to find a hidden agent. I was the first to complete the challenge." "So I'm not surprised," the colonel commented. "You know, Sophia, in a few years, when you're a little older, I'd like to invite you to visit the Federal Police Headquarters to see how we apply many of the techniques you're learning here in real life." Sophia's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "That would be incredible. Do you have labs like in the movies, with DNA and fingerprints?" "We have even more advanced equipment," he assured her. "And we're always needing brilliant minds to operate them." At that moment, Mrs. Louisa arrived to pick up her daughter. Unlike the first few months, she now seemed more at ease with Sophia's involvement in the program. Regular reports showed that, in addition to developing special skills, the girl was emotionally balanced and, in fact, more confident and happy. "Colonel Perry, what a surprise to find you here," Mrs. Louisa greeted him. "I came for an informal visit," he explained. "I'm impressed with Sophia's progress." Mother and daughter returned home by bus as they did every day. Despite the changes in their lives, Mrs. Louisa insisted on maintaining certain aspects of a normal routine so that Sophia wouldn't lose touch with everyday reality. "Colonel Perry invited me to visit the federal police when I'm older," Sophia recounted animatedly during the journey. Mrs. Louisa smiled. "Looks like you're already planning your future, huh?" "Sometimes I think about it," Sophia admitted. "I imagine what it would be like to work protecting people, like I did that day." Her mother hugged her affectionately. "I'm sure you'll be amazing at whatever path you choose, my little one." The following years passed quickly. Sophia continued to excel both in school and in Project Sentinel. At 12, she was already fluent in Russian, had started learning Mandarin, and mastered advanced techniques in forensic analysis, basic cryptography, and digital investigation. On her 13th birthday, she received a special gift from Dr. Edward, now back as president of the National Development Bank after his time as Secretary of the Treasury, and invitation to participate in an intensive summer program at the National Intelligence Academy in Washington, D.C. "It's a program normally restricted to university students," he explained during the small birthday party at the modest home where Sophia and her mother still lived. "But we made an exception for you given your exceptional abilities." Sophia could barely contain her excitement. Wow, I don't even know what to say." "Thank you, Dr. Edward." "Don't thank me," he replied with a smile. "You earned this through your own merit and dedication." That night, lying in bed, Sophia reflected on the path she had traveled since that day in the storeroom. From a shy girl in a public school to a prodigious young woman training for roles few could imagine. "All because I paid attention that day," she murmured to herself, marveling at how small choices could completely alter the course of a life. The following summer, Sophia entered the National Intelligence Academy complex for the first time. The imposing building, with its modern architecture and advanced security systems, would intimidate any teenager. But Sophia, now 13 and with a confidence that came from years of specialized training, felt strangely at home. "Welcome to the Academy, Sophia," greeted Director Mark Alvarez, a middle-aged man with a military bearing and a penetrating gaze. "We have high expectations for you in this program." Sophia nodded respectfully. "I'll do my best, sir. I'm eager to learn." And so began the most intense training period of her young life. For 8 weeks, Sophia was immersed in a world of realistic simulations, complex analyses, and mental challenges that would test even experienced professionals. Unlike Project Sentinel, where activities were adapted for children, here she worked alongside young adults, some more than 10 years older than her. Initially, she received skeptical and even disdainful looks. How could a 13-year-old girl compete with university students and young professionals? The answer came quickly. In the first field simulation, an intelligence-gathering exercise in the national park, Sophia not only completed all assigned tasks, but identified additional elements that no other participant noticed. "Impressive. Rivers," commented the instructor, Lieutenant Silver, using her surname as he did with all other participants, without special treatment. "Your report identified 3 counter-surveillance agents who weren't even part of the official exercise. They were park security guards observing our activity." The other participants looked at her with new respect, and so Sophia began to find her place in that demanding environment. The Little Guardian. Chapter 5. Formative Years. During her 8 weeks at the National Intelligence Academy, Sophia excelled in areas that surprised even the most experienced instructors. Her ability to process information and establish connections between seemingly unrelated data was exceptional. However, it was her skill in reading people that truly set her apart from the others. "It's almost like a sixth sense," commented Professor Gabriel Martins, a behavioral psychology specialist, during an evaluation meeting. "The way she perceives micro-expressions and subtle changes in behavior. Some of our veteran analysts don't have that natural sensitivity. At the end of the intensive program, Sophia was invited to participate in the closing ceremony as the speaker representing the youngest participants, an unprecedented honor for someone her age. Before an audience composed of intelligence officers, professors, and the other program participants, Sophia ascended the podium, adjusting the microphone to her height. "When I was 7 years old," she began, her voice clear despite her nervousness, "I happened to overhear a conversation that could have resulted in a tragedy. At that moment, I didn't fully understand what was happening, but I knew I needed to do something. What I've learned since then is that a country's true security doesn't depend only on weapons or advanced technology, but on the attention and courage of ordinary people who refuse to ignore what they see and hear." The audience listened in respectful silence, many already familiar with her extraordinary story. "In these 8 weeks, I've learned techniques and methodologies that transform this natural attention into a precise tool. But the most important thing I've learned is that the ultimate purpose of all this knowledge is to protect lives and preserve peace. Thank you for accepting me into this program. Even though I'm so young, I promise to honor that trust." The applause was warm. In the front row, Mrs. Louisa wiped away tears of pride, while beside her, Dr. Edward Mendoza smiled with satisfaction. What had begun as a gesture of gratitude had turned into an investment in the future of national security. At the end of the ceremony, Sophia was approached by an elegant woman in her 40s who had not been previously introduced. "Sophia Rivers. My name is Anna Clara Vance, Deputy Director of Operations for the NIA." Sophia shook the extended hand, surprised by the interest of someone so high-ranking. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Director." Anna Clara smiled. "The pleasure is mine. I've been following your progress since you entered Project Sentinel. You continue to exceed all expectations." "Thank you," Sophia replied, genuinely touched by the compliment. "I'd like to invite you to a special program when you turn 15. It's a shadowing program where young talents like you are assigned to observe real operations. Obviously not high-risk ones, but real ongoing cases." Sophia's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "That would be incredible." "Excellent. I'll keep in touch through Dr. Edward." The director paused, looking directly into the young woman's eyes. "You have a brilliant future ahead of you, Sophia. The country needs minds like yours." In the following years, Sophia continued her academic and personal development. At the Washington, D.C. Academy, now in high school, she maintained exemplary grades in all subjects, with particular emphasis on mathematics, science, and foreign languages. In parallel, in Project Sentinel, she had progressed to the most advanced levels, often assisting in the instruction of younger participants. Her fluency in Russian had become so refined that she occasionally assisted in translations for the federal police, under the direct supervision of Colonel Perry, who had become a kind of mentor. At 15, as promised, Sophia was invited to the NIA's shadowing program. The program, officially called Introduction to Intelligence Analysis, allowed young talents to observe the work of experienced analysts in selected cases. Her first assignment was to accompany the analysis of an information leak case from a state-owned company. Sophia was introduced to senior analyst Christine Davis, a 50-year-old woman with 25 years of experience in counterintelligence. "Welcome to the analysis section, Sophia," Christine greeted her, leading her down a high-security corridor at the NIA headquarters in Washington, D.C. "This is an intermediate-level sensitivity case, perfect for your first contact with real operations." Sophia nodded, trying to control her nervousness and excitement. "What exactly is my role, Dr. Davis?" "You will observe how we analyze suspicious communication and behavior patterns. I will present the data we have so far, and I want you to just observe initially. Then, if you have any insights or questions, you can share them." In the analysis room, monitors displayed real-time data flows, documents with highlighted passages, and photos of individuals under investigation. Christine explained the case. Confidential information about oil exploration technology was appearing in the hands of international competitors. The suspicion was an internal informant, but dozens of employees had access to the data. For 3 hours, Sophia watched Christine and 2 other analysts working, cross-referencing information, discussing theories. The methodology was fascinating, part science, part art. At the end of the session, Christine asked, "Any observations, Sophia?" "Did anything catch your attention?" Sophia hesitated, not wanting to seem presumptuous on her first day. "May I ask a question about server access patterns?" "Of course. I noticed that you are mainly analyzing accesses during business hours, but," she pointed to a graph, "there are consistent access peaks on Sundays, always between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m., from different terminals but with similar credentials. Is that normal?" The three analysts exchanged surprised glances. Christine enlarged the graph Sophia had mentioned. "Good eye, Sophia. That definitely deserves investigation. It's a subtle pattern we hadn't noticed." This was the first of many cases in which Sophia demonstrated her exceptional ability. Over the following months, she was exposed to different types of operations, always under strict supervision, but contributing more and more with relevant observations. On a particularly significant afternoon, she was called to Deputy Director Ana Clara's office. "Sophia, your performance in the program has been remarkable," the director said without preamble. "I have a special proposal for you." The young woman, now almost 16, waited in respectful silence. "We are forming an experimental analysis unit focused on emerging threats, technological, cyber, environmental. Areas where traditional methods are not always effective. I would like you to participate as a junior observer, 3 afternoons a week after your classes." Sophia felt her heart race. "That would be a tremendous honor, Director. But am I not too young for such a role?" Ana Clara smiled. "Age is just a number, Sophia. Your cognitive ability, your training, and most importantly, your unique perspective are what matter. We need minds that see the world differently." "I accept," Sophia replied without hesitation. "When do I start?" "On Monday." "And Sophia," Ana Clara paused significantly, "this is the first real step in your career. From here on, every choice and every analysis will have tangible consequences." Sophia nodded, understanding the responsibility she was taking on. Upon arriving home that night, she shared the news with her mother, Mrs. Louisa, who over the years had gradually accepted and even embraced her daughter's extraordinary path, reacted with a mixture of pride and apprehension. "I'm so proud of you." "My daughter," she said, hugging Sophia, "but this means you've practically decided on your professional future, haven't you?" Sophia nodded. "I think deep down I always knew since that day at the bank. It's like I found my purpose." Mrs. Louisa sighed. "Sometimes I wonder if you're not missing out on part of your youth, taking on such serious responsibilities so early." Sophia took her mother's hands in hers. "Mom, I have friends, I have fun, I have a normal life in many ways. But I also have this calling, you understand? And few people are lucky enough to discover their vocation so early in life." Mrs. Louisa smiled, recognizing the maturity in her daughter's words. "You've always been an old soul in a young body. I just want you to be happy. I am happy, Mom, especially knowing that I'm doing something important." The following Monday, Sophia began her role in the Emerging Threats Analysis Unit. The team was small and select. Besides her, there were 3 senior analysts, each specialized in a different area: technology, geopolitics, and behavioral psychology. The unit coordinator, Dr. Marcus Taylor, a former university professor, specializing in complex systems analysis, explained the group's mission. "We are not focused on conventional threats, but on systemic vulnerabilities and asymmetrical attacks. In an increasingly interconnected world, a small event can trigger global consequences. Our task is to identify these pressure points before they are exploited." In the following weeks, Sophia was introduced to advanced methodologies of predictive analysis, scenario modeling, and identification of emerging patterns. It was intellectually challenging work, requiring a unique combination of technical knowledge, intuition, and creative thinking. A particularly intriguing case arose 3 months after she joined the unit. Small anomalies began to appear in the financial systems of several American institutions, nothing serious enough to cause alarm in isolation, but which, viewed together, suggested a systematic exploitation of vulnerabilities. During an analysis meeting, while the experts debated possible origins of the attack, organized criminal groups, foreign hackers, activists, Sophia noticed something in the temporal patterns of the incursions. "Dr. Taylor," she interrupted timidly, "the attack times follow an interesting pattern. They don't correspond to typical time zones of any known country or group. But if we map them against the schedule of commercial satellite launches..." She projected a comparative graph she had prepared, showing a surprising correlation between anomalies in financial systems and the moments when certain satellites passed over American territory. The silence in the room was profound as everyone assimilated the implication. "This suggests that someone is using satellite communication infrastructure as an attack vector," Dr. Taylor concluded slowly. "Brilliant observation, Sophia." The discovery led to a broader investigation that eventually identified a sophisticated economic espionage operation using cutting-edge technology. Sophia's contribution was recognized in internal reports, further solidifying her reputation as an exceptional analyst despite her youth. At the end of that year, when Sophia turned 17, she received news that would definitively change her trajectory. Dr. Edward Mendoza, who continued to follow her career closely, personally delivered an envelope. "Sophia, as you know, your scholarship always included coverage for university education," he began, sitting in the modest living room where Sophia and her mother lived. "The time has come to discuss this next step." Sophia nodded, eager. In recent months, she had researched several options, leaning towards courses in computer science, international relations, or political science, all fields that would complement her intelligence training. "I have a slightly different proposal," Dr. Edward continued, handing her the envelope. "I'd like you to consider an international opportunity." Sophia opened the envelope and found an acceptance letter for a special exchange program at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., focused on international security studies. "Georgetown?" she exclaimed, surprised. "But how?" "Your reputation has already crossed our borders, Sophia. Some very influential people in the field of international security are aware of your potential. This is an opportunity to study with some of the world's greatest experts and bring that knowledge back to the country." Mrs. Louisa, who was following the conversation, seemed worried. "Study in the United States? Won't that distance Sophia from her own culture and roots?" "Dr." Edward smiled understandingly. "A valid concern, Mrs. Louisa. That's why the program is structured as an exchange, 1 year at Georgetown, followed by a practical internship at the NIA. The goal is not for Sophia to become a foreign agent, but for her to acquire global perspectives to apply for the benefit of our country." Sophia reread the letter, processing the magnitude of the opportunity. "When would I need to start?" "The program begins next Northern Hemisphere autumn, so you would have approximately 10 months to prepare. Enough time to complete high school and prepare for the international experience." Sophia looked at her mother, seeking her approval. Mrs. Louisa sighed but smiled with resignation. "It seems your journey is just beginning, my daughter. If this is what you truly want, you have my full support." "It's exactly what I want," Sophia confirmed, feeling a mixture of excitement and apprehension about the future unfolding before her. It's our chance to learn even more about how to protect what matters. Dr. Edward watched the interaction between mother and daughter with satisfaction. The investment he had made a decade earlier, motivated by gratitude to a courageous child, was about to bear fruit, far beyond what anyone could have predicted. "Then it's decided," he concluded. "Sophia Rivers is going to Georgetown, and then she will return to the country to officially begin her career in national intelligence." Sophia smiled, reflecting on the long road since the storeroom where it all began. Every step, every choice, every challenge had been part of a larger plan that she herself didn't fully comprehend at the time. Now, on the verge of adulthood, she felt ready for the next chapter of her extraordinary journey. "Thank you for believing in me from the beginning, Doctor." "Edward," she said sincerely, "I promise I won't disappoint you." "I never doubted it, not for a moment," he replied. "Some people are born with a clear purpose, Sophia. You are one of them." That night, after Dr. Edward had left and her mother had gone to sleep, Sophia stayed awake, looking out the window at the starry Washington, D.C. sky. The capital, with its modernist lines and ample spaces, had always given her a sense of possibility, as if the city itself was a symbol of a future to be built. Now that future was expanding beyond the borders she knew. Washington, Georgetown, international contacts, and then the return home to serve the country in a way that few could. All because of one day, one choice, she murmured to herself, still marveling at the paths of destiny. Sophia picked up her diary, a habit she had maintained since she was 9, and wrote, "Today my future took a direction I never imagined when I was that girl in the storeroom. I feel fear and excitement in equal measure, but above all I feel determination. The world is bigger and more complex than I ever realized, and there is so much to learn, so many ways to make a difference. This is just another stage in the journey." I began that day, when I decided I could not remain silent in the face of imminent danger. I don't know exactly what the future holds, but I know what my purpose is: to protect, observe, analyze, understand. To be a guardian, not just for a person or a country, but for all the values that matter in an increasingly interconnected and vulnerable world. She closed the diary and finally fell asleep, dreaming of possibilities and responsibilities, of challenges and discoveries, her young mind already prepared for a mission much greater than she could imagine. The Little Guardian. Chapter 6. First Mission. The following 10 months passed in a whirlwind of preparations. Sophia graduated high school with honors, was the valedictorian of her class, and simultaneously intensified her studies of English and American culture. Although she already had a good level of the language thanks to her school's bilingual curriculum and her training in Project Sentinel, she needed native-like fluency for the advanced studies she would undertake at Georgetown. Dr. Edward and the NIA ensured that all bureaucratic procedures for her exchange were handled smoothly: visa, documentation, on-campus housing, health insurance. Everything was organized with the efficiency expected of high-level government agencies. On the eve of her departure for Washington, Sophia had a final meeting with Deputy Director Ana Clara at the NIA headquarters. "This isn't just an academic program, Sophia," the director explained as they walked through the complex's internal gardens. "It's also your first unofficial mission." Sophia raised her eyebrows, intrigued. "What do you mean?" "While you're at Georgetown, in addition to your formal studies, we want you to observe and analyze how American agencies approach certain security issues. We're not asking you to spy, nothing illegal or unethical, just to pay attention and learn from their experience." "I understand," Sophia nodded. "Specific areas of interest." Ana Clara smiled, appreciating the young woman's professional response. "Mainly methodologies for predictive analysis and response systems for emerging threats. The Americans are years ahead in these areas, and we can learn a lot from them." "And how do I report my observations?" "You'll have a contact at the American Embassy, Counselor Paul Monroe. Meet with him monthly for a casual lunch. It's all informal, just an exchange of knowledge." Sophia absorbed the instructions, feeling the weight of responsibility, but also a thrill of excitement. It was her first real, albeit unofficial, mission. "Don't forget," Ana Clara added, stopping to face Sophia directly, "your primary goal is still to learn and develop. This is an opportunity for growth, not a field operation." "I understand perfectly, Director. I won't disappoint you." "I never thought you would," Ana Clara smiled. "We'll be waiting for your return in a year to formally begin your career here." The next day, Sophia boarded her flight at Washington, D.C. International Airport, accompanied by her mother and Dr. Edward. Mrs. Louisa, who had never traveled outside the country, tried to disguise her anxiety with practical advice. "Remember to call every week, to eat well, not to walk alone at night." Sophia hugged her mother tightly. "I'll miss you so much, Mom. I promise I'll take care of myself." "And don't forget who you are and where you came from," Mrs. Louisa added, tears in her eyes. "No matter how many languages you speak or how many degrees you earn, you'll always be my Sophia, the girl who grew up listening to Mrs. Irene's stories about Russia." Dr. Edward watched the farewell with a melancholic smile. "Mrs. Louisa, I promise we'll keep you informed about everything, and Sophia will have full support during her stay in the United States." Finally, after the last hugs and recommendations, Sophia passed through passport control and headed to the international boarding area. Looking back one last time, she saw her mother waving, her face a mixture of pride and concern beside Dr. Edward, the man who had changed her destiny by believing in a 7-year-old child. "See you soon," she murmured, before turning and moving forward. Her arrival in Washington, D.C. was an overwhelming experience. The size of the city, the fast pace, the rapidly spoken English with diverse accents, everything was new and a little intimidating. But Sophia had been trained to adapt quickly to new environments, and within a few days, she was confidently navigating the Georgetown campus and its surroundings. Her university residence was shared with an American student named Jessica Martinez, the daughter of diplomats with international experience, which facilitated Sophia's adaptation. Jessica, outgoing and welcoming, helped her understand American cultural nuances and settle into the new environment. "So you're from the country?" "Cool. My parents served at the American Embassy in Miami for 2 years, but I was too young to remember," Jessica commented on the first day as she helped Sophia unpack. "Actually, I'm from Washington, D.C. It's quite different from Miami," Sophia explained. "More organized, less beach, more politics." "Like Washington, then. You'll feel right at home," Jessica laughed. "And what brings you to Georgetown?" "The security studies program is quite competitive." Sophia had been instructed to keep a simplified version of her story. "I received a special scholarship from my government. I'm interested in international relations and security analysis." Wow, impressive for someone so young. "I'm in the international relations program too, but with a focus on diplomacy and conflict resolution. Maybe we'll have some classes together." Classes began the following week, and Sophia immediately realized that Georgetown would be a much greater challenge than anything she had faced before. The academic level was extraordinarily high, with professors who were world-renowned in their fields and brilliant classmates from various countries. Her first course, Transnational Threat Analysis, was taught by Professor William Harrington, a former senior CIA analyst and author of several books on global security. "Welcome to the 21st century," he began in the first class, "where the most significant threats ignore borders, national identities, and traditional power structures. Terrorism, transnational organized crime, cyber attacks, pandemics, climate crises, these are the threats that will define our era." Sophia took notes furiously, fascinated by the global perspective the professor presented. "The challenge for analysts and policymakers," he continued, "is not just to respond to these threats, but to anticipate where and how they will arise. Predictive analysis is no longer a luxury. It is an existential necessity." After class, while the other students quickly left, Sophia approached the professor with some questions. Harrington, initially surprised by the young American's youth, was soon impressed by the depth of her observations. "Have you had any training in analysis before, Ms. Rivers?" "Some informal experience back home," she replied carefully. "Mainly self-study and some extracurricular programs." "Well, you have a natural talent for it. Would you consider being my research assistant next semester? I'm working on a new predictive analysis model for hybrid threats." Sophia could hardly believe her luck. This was exactly the area the NIA had highlighted as being of interest. "It would be a tremendous honor, Professor Harrington." Weeks turned into months, and Sophia established a productive routine. During the day, she attended classes and participated in study groups. In the afternoons, she alternated between the library and research sessions with Professor Harrington. At night, she studied and occasionally socialized with colleagues, always keeping her ears open for relevant information. Once a month, as agreed, she met with Counselor Paul Monroe from the American Embassy. The meetings seemed casual, lunches at restaurants or cafes near campus, but during these conversations, Sophia shared her observations on American security analysis methodologies. "It's fascinating how they integrate data from diverse sources," she commented in one of these meetings. "Professor Harrington's multivariate analysis model considers everything from social media posts to climate changes to predict regional instabilities." Paul Monroe, an experienced diplomat in his 50s, listened attentively, occasionally asking insightful questions. "And have you gained access to the practical part of these methodologies?" Software implementation protocols? Yes, I'm working directly with the systems as a research assistant. The professor is surprisingly open about the technical aspects. The counselor smiled, satisfied. Excellent. Your observations have been extremely valuable, Sophia. Director Anna Clara is very impressed with your reports. By the end of the first semester, Sophia had established herself as one of the best students in the program. Despite being significantly younger than most of her classmates, her ability to analyze complex situations and offer original insights was recognized by both professors and students. It was during her second semester that the most significant opportunity arose. Professor Harrington was invited to participate in a temporary task force for the Department of State to analyze emerging threats in South America, with a special focus on groups operating on the borders between Colombia and Venezuela. Sophia, I'd like you to participate as my assistant on this project, he invited her after a class. Your perspective as a native would be invaluable, and it would be an excellent practical experience for you. The young woman felt a mixture of excitement and caution. This was an extraordinary opportunity, but also a delicate situation. She would be analyzing sensitive information about her own country for the American government. I need to think about it for a bit, Professor. It's a significant responsibility. I understand perfectly. Let me know by the end of the week. That night, Sophia made a special call to Anna Clara, using a secure protocol they had established for sensitive communications. Director, a situation has arisen that I need to discuss urgently, she explained, reporting the professor's invitation. There was a long silence on the line before Anna Clara responded. This is unexpected but potentially very valuable. Accept the invitation, Sophia, but keep us informed about everything. This is a rare opportunity to understand how the Americans analyze our region. What if they ask me for information I shouldn't share? Use your training. You know how to be collaborative without compromising sensitive information. Besides, you officially don't have access to classified national data, so you wouldn't be violating any protocols. Understood. I will accept then. The following week, Sophia joined the task force, which operated in a secure room at the Department of State building. The group was small and select. Professor Harrington, 2 career department analysts, an organized crime specialist from the FBI, and now Sophia. This is Sophia Rivers, my most promising assistant, Harrington introduced her. She is a native and has exceptional knowledge of the region we will be analyzing. The other members received her with professional courtesy, although Sophia could perceive a slight distrust, natural. Considering her age and nationality, the task force's job was to analyze emerging patterns of transnational criminal activity in the Triple Border region and assess possible connections with international extremist groups. During the first few sessions, Sophia remained primarily an observer, absorbing the American methodology and familiarizing herself with the available data. It was in the third meeting that she finally offered her first significant contribution. The team was analyzing suspicious financial movements between shell companies in the region. We are assuming that these flows follow the logic of traditional organized crime, Sophia observed, but the temporal pattern seems to indicate something different. She projected a graph she had prepared, showing correlations between financial transfers and seemingly unrelated events, changes in customs enforcement, personnel rotation at specific border posts, and alterations in trade routes. This looks more like a tactical intelligence adaptation pattern than conventional organized crime, she explained. It's almost as if they are testing detection systems, not just moving money. The FBI specialist, Special Agent Robert Collins, studied the graph with increasing interest. That's insightful. Are you suggesting we're observing an intelligence operation disguised as common criminal activity? It's a possibility that deserves investigation, Sophia replied carefully. In my limited experience, common criminals don't demonstrate this tactical precision or this level of sophistication in information gathering. Professor Harrington looked at his assistant with new respect. Excellent analysis. Sophia, let's explore this line of investigation. In the following weeks, the task force reoriented part of its analysis based on Sophia's observation. Gradually, a worrying picture emerged. What initially seemed to be mere drug cartel activity in the region was, in fact, a sophisticated intelligence-gathering operation, possibly conducted by a state actor using criminal groups as cover. Throughout this period, Sophia kept Counselor Paul informed, who in turn relayed the information to the NIA. The knowledge of how the Americans analyzed the situation was as valuable as the data itself regarding the threat. At the end of the project, the task force's final report, which included significant contributions from Sophia, was presented to senior Department of State officials. Recommendations included closer cooperation with national intelligence agencies, ironically, the same NIA that Sophia unofficially represented. Professor Harrington was exultant with the project's success. "Your work was exceptional, Sophia. You have a brilliant future in this field, if you decide to pursue a career in the United States. Thank you, Professor, but my plans are to return home after completing the program. I feel I can contribute more to my country." Harrington nodded, understanding. "Noble decision, but know that you will always have open doors here, should you change your mind." As her year at Georgetown neared its end, Sophia felt transformed by the experience. She had absorbed not only advanced technical knowledge, but also a deeper understanding of global geopolitics and the role of her country in that complex context. In her last meeting with Counselor Paul, he handed her a discreet envelope. "From Director Ana Clara," he explained, "to be opened when you are alone." That night, in her university residence room, Sophia opened the envelope and found a brief, handwritten letter. "Sophia, your work in recent months has exceeded all expectations. The knowledge you have acquired and shared with us is already being implemented in our protocols. Upon your return home, you will not come back as a student or intern, but as a junior analyst for the NIA, with all the responsibilities and privileges that the position implies. Your first official mission awaits. With admiration and anticipation, Ana Clara Vance, Deputy Director of Operations." Sophia reread the letter several times, feeling a wave of pride and determination. Everything she had worked for years was coming to fruition. That girl from the storeroom, who had once saved a businessman with her keen observation, was about to formally assume the role of protecting her country. On the eve of her departure, she made a final visit to the Lincoln Memorial, one of her favorite places in Washington. Contemplating the imposing statue of the American president, she reflected on power, responsibility, and the role of individuals in protecting a nation's fundamental values. "I'm ready," she murmured to herself, as a personal promise. "I'm ready for whatever comes." The next day, she boarded the flight back to Washington, D.C., leaving behind a year of extraordinary growth and heading towards a future full of challenges and possibilities, no longer as a student or observer, but as an official intelligence agent for the country. The Little Guardian. Chapter 7. The Guardian. The plane landed at Washington, D.C. International Airport on a typical day of clear skies and dry air in the capital region. Sophia, now 19, felt a profound emotion as she spotted the unmistakable landscape of the American capital from the window, the modernist lines of its architecture, the intense blue of the sky, the National Mall in the distance. She was finally home. In the arrival area, she spotted her mother waving anxiously. Mrs. Louisa, who had left her job as a cleaning assistant to take on an administrative position at the National Development Bank, thanks to Dr. Edwards' intervention, looked rejuvenated and elegant in her simple but well-tailored business attire. "My daughter!" she exclaimed, hugging Sophia tightly. "How I missed you!" "You look different, more mature." "I missed you too, Mom," Sophia replied, emotional. "Many things have changed, but the most important things remain the same." Behind Mrs. Louisa, Sophia noticed two familiar figures, Dr. Edward Mendoza and Ana Clara Vance. "Welcome back." "Sophia," Dr. Edward greeted her with a warm smile. "The country missed you." Ana Clara, always more formal, extended her hand. "Analyst Rivers, it's a pleasure to officially welcome you as a member of the agency." Sophia shook the offered hand, feeling the weight of the new designation. "Thank you, Director. I'm ready to begin." "And begin you will," Ana Clara confirmed. "After a few days of rest and reacclimation, of course." On the way home, Sophia observed the city with fresh eyes. Washington, D.C., with its unique architecture and planned spaces, seemed different after a year abroad. There was a deeper sense of purpose now. This was not just the city where she grew up, but the nerve center of the country she had sworn to protect. "The city has changed so much," she commented to her mother, as Dr. Edwards' car drove them along the National Mall. "Not as much as you have," Mrs. Louisa replied with an affectionate smile. "You left as a brilliant girl and returned as a determined woman." The first few days after her return were dedicated to family and friends. Sophia and Mrs. Louisa had moved to a comfortable apartment in Georgetown West, an upper-middle-class residential neighborhood near the National Park. It was a significant change from the modest house where they had lived for years, but Mrs. Louisa insisted on maintaining a simple lifestyle, despite the new financial possibilities. "Never forget where we came from," she always reminded her daughter. "Money and recognition are consequences of your work, not your goal." Sophia made sure to visit her old school and some of her former Project Sentinel teachers. Her Russian instructor, Mrs. Natalia, now retired, received her with tears in her eyes. "My little linguist," the elderly woman hugged her. "I hear you now speak Russian better than many natives." "All thanks to you," Sophia replied with genuine gratitude. "Your patience and dedication opened doors I never even imagined existed." She also paid a special visit to Mrs. Irene, her old Russian neighbor, now almost 90, but still lucid and perceptive. "So you work for the government now," the elderly woman commented with a twinkle in her eye. "Protecting secrets, like in the spy books you loved so much as a child." Sophia smiled, neither confirming nor denying, a habit that had already become part of her professional nature. "Let's just say I'm making good use of the stories you used to tell me about the Cold War." That night, as they dined on the small balcony overlooking the park, Sophia shared some of her experiences in Georgetown, obviously omitting sensitive details. "It was incredible, Mom. The way they approach international security is so advanced, but at the same time, I realize that we have unique perspectives here that are equally valuable." Mrs. Louisa watched her daughter with a mixture of pride and a touch of melancholy. "You've grown so much, Sophia. Sometimes I still see that curious little girl from the storeroom, but now you're a woman with purpose." Sophia took her mother's hand in hers. "And you will always be the strong woman who taught me the value of courage and integrity." "Everything I am started with you, Mom." A week after her return, Sophia reported to the NIA headquarters for her first official day as a junior analyst. The complex, located in a restricted area of the South Police sector, was discreet on the outside, but impressively modern on the inside. At the entrance, after passing several biometric security checks, she was greeted by her direct supervisor, Dr. Raphael Mason, coordinator of the Counterintelligence and Non-Conventional Threats Division. "Welcome, Sophia," he greeted her. "Your reputation precedes you." Dr. Raphael, a man in his 40s, with a discreet scar above his left eyebrow and eyes that seemed to analyze everything methodically, led her through the agency's corridors. "You are being assigned to our predictive analysis team, focusing initially on hybrid threats, specifically at the intersection of industrial espionage and critical infrastructure security." Sophia nodded, absorbing the information. Did anything specific motivate this assignment? Raphael smiled, appreciating the perceptiveness of the question. "Precisely. We have identified worrying patterns that suggest a coordinated campaign against strategic American sectors: energy, telecommunications, water resources. We suspect state actors using seemingly disconnected proxies. Similar to the case I analyzed in Washington," Sophia observed. "Exactly why you were chosen. Your experience with American methodology, combined with your knowledge of our national reality, offers a unique perspective." The analysis room she was led to was a high-tech environment that was in no way inferior to American facilities. Large screens displayed real-time data streams, interactive maps, and complex graphs. Her team of 6 analysts worked at individual stations, all with concentrated expressions. "Team, this is Sophia Rivers, our new analyst. She has just returned from a specialized program at Georgetown and will be a valuable resource for our current investigation." The analysts greeted her with professional respect, but Sophia noticed curious glances, likely wondering about her youth and how she had earned such a coveted position so quickly. One analyst in particular, Carla Nelson, approximately 10 years older than Sophia, seemed especially reserved, almost suspicious. Sophia made a mental note to pay special attention to this dynamic. Building trusting relationships would be as important as her technical skills. Sophia, you will have today and tomorrow to familiarize yourself with our systems and data. On Wednesday, I expect your initial observations on the case. The following days were a total immersion in the work. Sophia absorbed enormous amounts of information, establishing connections and patterns that others might not perceive. Her unique training, starting from childhood with Project Sentinel and culminating with the experience in Georgetown, had shaped a mind exceptionally adapted for this type of analysis. During these days, she made a conscious effort to get to know each member of her team individually. With Carla, the initially most reserved analyst, she found common ground discussing cryptographic analysis methodologies, a shared interest. Gradually, the initial distrust gave way to mutual professional respect. "You're not what I expected," Carla admitted during a lunch in the agency cafeteria. "When I heard about the young prodigy who was coming, I imagined someone arrogant and theoretical," Sophia smiled. "And instead, you found someone arrogant and practical." Carla laughed, the tension finally breaking. "Neither, actually. You listen more than you speak. That's rare in this environment." On Wednesday, as requested, she presented her preliminary observations to Dr. Raphael and the team. "I believe we are facing something more sophisticated than it initially appears," she began, projecting a map of geo-referenced incidents. "These events do not follow the traditional logic of industrial espionage or sabotage." She highlighted temporal and geographical patterns that suggested a systematic, almost scientific approach. The adversary seems to be mapping systemic vulnerabilities, not just seeking specific information or causing immediate damage. It's as if they are building a complete map of pressure points in our critical infrastructure. One of the senior analysts, Gustav Prince, interrupted, "That suggests long-term planning, possibly preparation for a future conflict scenario." "Exactly," Sophia agreed. "And there's another interesting element." She projected a new graph. "Many of these actions seem calibrated to stay just below our usual threshold for significant response. It's a sophisticated gray zone strategy." Dr. Raphael studied the data with a grave expression. "This would correspond to the modus operandi of certain state actors we have been monitoring." "Excellent analysis, Sophia. I want you to lead a working group focused specifically on this aspect of the investigation." In the following weeks, Sophia immersed herself completely in her new role. Her working group methodically analyzed each incident, seeking deeper patterns and hidden connections. They often worked late into the night, and Sophia was frequently the last to leave, driven by a sense of mission that transcended simple professional duty. During this intense period, she developed a particular bond with Ronald Silver, a cybersecurity specialist with military training who was part of her working group. "You have a different way of looking at problems," he commented one night, as they both analyzed malicious code found in a compromised system. "Most people look for what's wrong. You seem to look for what's too right." Sophia smiled, intrigued by the observation. "What do you mean?" "In the patterns you identified, you didn't focus on the obvious anomalies, but on the artificial consistencies, things that seem normal, but are perfectly regular to be natural." "It's a matter of perspective," she replied. "Since childhood, I've learned to observe not only what's out of place, but also what's strangely in the right place." Gradually, a disturbing picture emerged, a seemingly disconnected network of companies, consultants, and tourists was conducting a systematic mapping operation of vulnerabilities in strategic American sectors. Sophia and her group's discoveries began to make waves within the agency. In a system where seniority usually dictated influence, it was unusual for such a young analyst to lead such a significant investigation. Some veterans resented it, others observed with growing interest. A month after starting the work, Sophia was called to a high-level meeting. To her surprise, in addition to Ana Clara and Dr. Raphael, the Director General of the NIA, the Secretary of Defense, and Dr. Edward Mendoza, now again Secretary of the Treasury, were present. Sophia, the Director General, began without preamble. "Your analyses have reached my desk, and subsequently the National Security Council. We need your direct assessment of the situation. With calm and professional precision, Sophia presented her conclusions, answering incisive questions from those present. Her youth contrasted with the gravity of the analysis presented. But no one in the room questioned her competence. Based on the identified patterns, she concluded, "We believe we are facing an operation coordinated by a state actor, possibly with long-term objectives that include preparation for hybrid conflict scenarios." The Secretary of Defense, General August Foster, asked the direct question, "Which state actor in your assessment?" Sophia hesitated briefly, aware of the diplomatic weight of her answer. The methods and patterns most consistently correspond to operations previously attributed to Russian intelligence units, specifically the main directorate of the General Staff of the Armed Forces, known as the GRU. A heavy silence fell over the room. Relations between the US and Russia were complex, with cooperation in some sectors and disagreements in others. Is your conclusion based solely on pattern analysis, or is there concrete evidence? The general questioned, his expression impenetrable. "We have specific digital signatures in the identified malware," Sophia replied without hesitation. "Furthermore, linguistic analysis of intercepted communications, although limited, shows syntactic constructions characteristic of Russian, even when written in English or Portuguese. Finally, the selection of targets aligns perfectly with known geopolitical interests of the Russian Federation in North America." The Director General nodded, impressed by the solidity of the analysis. "And what would be the strategic objective?" he asked. "Our assessment points to an informational battlefield preparation strategy, not necessarily aiming for conventional conflict, but establishing influence and disruption capabilities that could be activated in future scenarios of geopolitical tension." Dr. Edward, who observed Sophia with evident pride, intervened. "What do you recommend, Analyst Rivers?" Sophia did not expect to be asked to make recommendations in a meeting of this level, but she was prepared. A three-pronged response. First, immediate strengthening of cyber defenses in critical infrastructures identified as targets. Second, a discrete counterintelligence operation to identify and neutralize active agents within the national territory. Third, preparation of a diplomatic dossier for eventual use through appropriate channels, without necessarily escalating the situation publicly. General Foster exchanged glances with the Director General, both clearly impressed. "These recommendations align with our preliminary assessment," the General commented. "I would ask your team to work directly with the Joint Chiefs of Staff to detail the operational plan." Sophia nodded. Maintaining professional composure, despite the enormity of the responsibility being conferred. "It will be an honor, General." After the meeting, Dr. Edward asked for a few minutes alone with Sophia. "I cannot adequately express the pride I feel," he said, when the others had already left. "I remember that determined little girl in my office, with an amateur recording of men speaking Russian, and I see now the brilliant woman you've become." Sophia smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude. "It all started with you believing in me." "Dr. Edward, I'll never forget that." "The country is lucky to have you," he replied simply, "and I am lucky to have lived to see the outcome of that impulsive decision to offer a scholarship." He paused, as if considering whether he should continue. "You know, Sophia, today's meeting reminded me of that day at the bank. The same clarity of thought, the same courage to say what needs to be said, no matter how inconvenient. Some qualities don't change with time or training. They are simply part of who you are." In the following days, Sophia faced the challenge of leading an interagency operation, something that analysts with decades of experience would find daunting. She assembled a team of experts from the NIA, the Armed Forces, and the Federal Police, establishing information sharing and coordination protocols that overcame traditional institutional rivalries. Her approach was innovative. Instead of focusing solely on neutralizing active agents, she developed a strategy to feed the adversary network with carefully fabricated information, authentic enough to seem valuable, but strategically misleading in critical aspects. "It's a risky strategy," commented Colonel Perry of the Federal Police, now promoted and part of the operation. "If they realize we're feeding them disinformation, they might accelerate their plans." That's why the information needs to be genuine for the most part, Sophia explained. We want them to believe they still have the upper hand, while in reality we are mapping their entire network and infrastructure. The operation demanded patience and meticulous precision. For 3 months, Sophia's team worked tirelessly, identifying agents, monitoring communications, and gradually taking control of the situation without alerting the adversary. During this intense period, Sophia practically lived at the NIA headquarters. Her mother, understanding the importance of her daughter's work even without knowing the details, frequently appeared with home-cooked meals and words of encouragement. "You're thinner," Mrs. Louisa commented on one of these visits, "and you have dark circles under your eyes that look like ink stains." Sophia smiled tiredly. "I'm fine, Mom, just an important project." "Important enough to sacrifice your health?" Mrs. Louisa questioned, with that simple but profound wisdom that had always characterized her. "Remember, honey, no country needs exhausted heroes. It needs guardians who can remain vigilant for a long time." Those simple words stayed with Sophia, reminding her of the importance of balance even in the most crucial missions. Finally, after months of meticulous preparation, the operation entered its decisive phase. In a coordinated action across multiple American cities, federal police and NIA agents neutralized an extensive network of foreign operatives. Simultaneously, cybersecurity specialists deactivated malicious digital infrastructures that had been implanted in critical systems. The operation was a resounding success, conducted with such discretion that the press was not even aware of it. Only a small official statement mentioned preventive cybersecurity measures implemented in national infrastructures, without any mention of counterintelligence operations or foreign actors. At a post-operation evaluation meeting, the Director General of the NIA expressed his satisfaction. "This was possibly the most successful counterintelligence operation we have conducted in the last decade, and the most impressive thing is that we managed to neutralize the threat without creating a diplomatic incident." Looking directly at Sophia, he added, "Analyst Rivers, your work on this case was exemplary. I am formally recommending your promotion to senior analyst, effective immediately." Such a promotion after only 1 year at the agency was virtually unprecedented. Some veterans would certainly resent it, but no one could question the merits of the decision. In the following years, Sophia continued to excel in increasingly complex and sensitive operations. Her reputation grew not only within the NIA, but throughout the international intelligence community. She was frequently invited to multinational conferences and working groups, always representing the country with exceptional competence. At 21, she was promoted again, this time to senior analyst, the youngest person to achieve such a position in the agency's history. Her expertise in hybrid threats and counterintelligence operations became globally recognized, although her identity remained protected outside the most restricted circles. On a sunny afternoon, exactly 5 years after her return from the United States, Sophia found herself in the office of Director General Anna Clara Vance, who had been promoted to the agency's highest position the previous year. "Sophia, I have a proposal for you," Anna Clara began, indicating for her to sit down. "We are establishing a new division, focused exclusively on emerging and non-conventional threats, sophisticated cyber attacks, influence operations, hybrid warfare, interference in critical infrastructures." Sophia nodded, familiar with these areas that had been her focus in recent years. "We want you to lead this division. It would be a significant promotion with substantial responsibilities, but we believe you are more than prepared." Sophia felt her heart race. At 24, she was being offered a leadership position normally reserved for professionals with decades of experience. "It's an enormous responsibility," she replied cautiously. "It is," Anna Clara agreed bluntly, "but you have repeatedly demonstrated extraordinary capabilities. Furthermore, your youth is an advantage in this case. You intuitively understand the digital and interconnected world in a way that many veterans cannot." Sophia reflected for a few moments. "If the agency trusts me for this role, I will accept it with humility and determination." Anna Clara smiled, satisfied. "Excellent. You will begin the transition process immediately." There is a developing situation that will be your first test as division director. The situation mentioned was a sophisticated cyber attack against the country's energy and water infrastructures. Unlike previous incidents, this one demonstrated an unprecedented level of technical sophistication, with the ability to adapt to countermeasures and hide its true origin. The attack began 72 hours ago, the team's cybersecurity specialist explained during Sophia's first briefing as director. Initially, it looked like common ransomware, but we quickly realized it's much more sophisticated. The real objective seems to be to establish persistence in the systems for a more destructive future attack. Sophia absorbed the information, her mind already working on multiple levels of analysis. While others saw only malicious code and invasion techniques, she sought deeper patterns, behavioral signatures, clues about the true identity and intentions behind the attack. As she delved into the data analysis, she began to notice familiar elements: the modus operandi, the choice of targets, the technical sophistication. Everything reminded her of something she had seen before. With a jolt of clarity, she realized the connection. "It's the same group," she murmured to herself, analyzing code on her screen. The same one involved in the bank case 15 years ago. It was a startling revelation. The group that had planned the attack against Dr. Edward Mendoza so long ago, when she was just a child in the storeroom, had evolved into a sophisticated cyber attack operation. Immediately, she called an emergency meeting with her team. "We have a longer history with this adversary than we initially thought," she explained, sharing her analysis. "This gives us a significant strategic advantage." Using her unique understanding of the opponent, Sophia developed an innovative strategy, not only to block the current attack, but to identify and neutralize the entire infrastructure behind it. The operation involved elements of reverse engineering, operational psychology, and geopolitical analysis, a multidisciplinary approach that reflected her unique training. "What we propose is not just defensive," she explained in a coordination meeting with other agencies. "We will turn this attack into an opportunity to completely dismantle this actor's offensive cyber capabilities." The ensuing operation was conducted with surgical precision. While seemingly only defending the affected systems, Sophia's team was actually executing a complex counter-operation. They tracked the adversary's command and control infrastructures, identified key operators, and finally, in a daring move, compromised the attacker's own systems. The result was beyond the most optimistic expectations. Not only were the American systems protected, but an extensive international network of malicious cyber operations was exposed and neutralized. Several allied countries indirectly benefited from the operation, although few knew the origin of the intelligence that had helped them. At a National Security Council meeting to evaluate the results, the President personally praised the work of the new division. "Director Rivers," he said, "using Sophia's new title, what your team accomplished in recent weeks represents a significant advance in our nation's cybersecurity posture. The country not only defended itself, but demonstrated first-rate technical and operational capability." Weeks later, Sophia was invited to the 25th anniversary ceremony of the National Development Bank. Dr. Edward, now back as president of the bank after another period as Secretary of the Treasury, made a point of having her as a guest of honor. Although few present understood the true meaning of her presence there. During the ceremony, Dr. Edward gave an emotional speech about long-term vision and investments that truly matter. Without mentioning names or confidential details, he shared an inspiring story about a young woman who once saved the bank from disaster and who now protected the entire nation. Sometimes, the most important investment we can make is not in technology or infrastructure, but in the right people at the right time, he concluded, and the returns on those investments surpass any traditional financial metric. After the ceremony, Sophia and Dr. Edward spoke briefly in a quiet corner of the hall. "I heard about your latest promotion," he commented. "Division Director at 24. Impressive, but not surprising." Sophia smiled modestly. "I'm still learning a lot every day." "We always will be," he replied wisely. "But few have your innate ability to observe and understand what truly matters." He paused, looking at her seriously. "You know you just neutralized the same group that tried to get me when we first met, don't you?" Sophia stared at him, surprised. How did you know that? It's classified information. Dr. Edward smiled mysteriously. I have my sources, and I wanted you to know that the circle is complete. You saved me when you were a child, and now as a consummate professional, you have protected not only me but countless others. Again. He observed the elegant crowd in the hall, executives and politicians chatting casually. They have no idea, do they? Of the danger that was averted, of the threats that are neutralized daily by invisible guardians like you. Sophia followed his gaze, reflecting on the nature of her work. Always in the shadows, always vigilant, rarely recognized. It's better that way, she finally replied. True security operates best in silence. In the following months, Sophia solidified her position as one of the most respected leaders in the American intelligence community. Her division grew in importance and scope, attracting exceptional talent and developing unprecedented capabilities. She implemented innovative programs, including a special initiative to identify and recruit young talents in observation and analysis, a project inspired by her own experience in the Sentinel program. We need to find the Sophias of tomorrow, she explained to her team when presenting the project. Children and teenagers with that unique combination of curiosity, attention to detail, and courage to act when necessary. The program, named Keen Eyes, established discrete partnerships with schools across the country, offering extracurricular activities that, under the guise of science or technology clubs, actually assessed and developed observation, critical analysis, and problem-solving skills. This is not just a recruitment program, Sophia emphasized. It's an investment in national resilience. Even if these young people never formally work in intelligence, the skills they develop will make them more conscious and vigilant citizens. In parallel, she continued her own professional and personal development. She completed a master's degree in strategic studies, published academic articles under a pseudonym, and occasionally lectured in advanced courses for national security agents. In her personal life, she maintained a small but loyal circle of friends, most of them colleagues, who shared an understanding of the demands and restrictions of her profession. There was also a growing relationship with Ronald Silver, the cybersecurity specialist from her original team, who now headed the division's technical department. The relationship had developed slowly, with professional respect, gradually evolving into something more personal. It's strange dating someone who knows most of your professional secrets, Sophia commented during a rare weekend off, as they walked through the national park. And even stranger dating someone who could probably read my mind if they really tried, Ronald replied with a smile. But there's something comforting in not having to explain why you need to leave in the middle of the night to deal with a situation. Sophia's life had found a balance, not perfect, but sustainable. The work remained intense and often stressful, but she found purpose and satisfaction in every challenge overcome, every threat neutralized before most citizens even knew of its existence. Upon returning home, to the penthouse she now occupied in Georgetown West, overlooking the national park, Sophia found herself reflecting on her extraordinary journey. From the observant girl in the storeroom to the leader of a division crucial to national security, every step had been shaped by that initial moment of childlike courage. She picked up her diary, a habit she had maintained since childhood, and wrote, "Today I understood something fundamental. There are no small acts of courage. Every choice to do what is right, to act when others would remain passive, has the potential to unleash far-reaching consequences. 15 years ago, I was just a scared child who decided she couldn't stay silent. Today, I lead exceptional people in protecting what matters most. The world is full of complex threats and sophisticated adversaries, but also of ordinary people willing to do the extraordinary when necessary. My mission is not only to protect, but to inspire, just as I was inspired by my mother, by Dr. Edward, and by everyone who believed in the little Sophia from the storeroom. The circle completes itself when I find other young talents, other keen eyes that can see what many ignore. Perhaps this is the true legacy, not just what we do personally, but the capabilities we develop in others. Tomorrow brings new challenges, new threats, new opportunities to make a difference. And I will be ready, observing keenly as I always have, Sophia closed the diary and walked to the balcony, watching the lights of Washington, D.C. twinkle against the night sky. The capital, planned with a vision for the future, seemed the perfect backdrop for her story, a story that began with the keen observation of a child and culminated in the protection of a nation. On the horizon, the sun began to rise, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. A new day was beginning, bringing with it new invisible threats, new challenges to be faced. But Sophia Rivers would be vigilant, as she had been since that first moment in the storeroom. The little guardian had become exactly what she was destined to be, a vigilant sentinel against threats that few could see, but which would affect everyone if realized. And as long as there were keen eyes like hers, the country could sleep a little more soundly.